This is Mystery Port Chronicles. I am Nathaniel Aldridge, a man who watches, listens, and writes down the truth. Here in the fog and lamplight of the harbor, every detail speaks. Evelyn Hart records the case files. I follow the clues. And together we bring light to places built on shadows. Let us begin. Time is supposed to be absolute, unchanging, the one constant in a world of variables. But on that Wednesday afternoon in October, time became a weapon. The town clock struck 1. Its deep bronze voice rolled across the harbor, through the streets, into every shop and home. Everyone heard it. Everyone knew it was exactly 1 p.m. Which is why the murder of Silas Thorne at precisely 1:05 p.m. seemed impossible. Because at 1:05 p.m., the only suspect, watchmaker Elias Finch, was inside the clock tower itself, witnessed by 4 people, oiling the very mechanism that had just struck the hour. We arrived at Thorne's export house within the hour, summoned by Constable Reeves, who looked more bewildered than I'd ever seen him. "It's impossible, Mr. Aldridge," he said before we even entered. "Finch couldn't have done it. He was in the tower, multiple witnesses. The clock doesn't lie." "Clocks," I replied, "only tell the truth they're set to tell." The victim lay in his private office, a lavish room overlooking the harbor, filled with exotic imports and the trappings of wealth. Silas Thorne had been a successful merchant, expensive tastes, expensive enemies. He sat slumped in his leather chair, a letter opener buried between his ribs with surgical precision. Death had been nearly instantaneous. Dr. Bellamy was already examining the body. "Time of death?" I asked. "Based on body temperature and rigor mortis, I'd estimate between 1 and 1:10 p.m. The wound pattern suggests someone with knowledge of anatomy, single thrust, directly to the heart." "Or someone with practice," Evelyn observed quietly, her notebook already filling with details. The office showed no signs of struggle. The door had been locked from inside. The window overlooking the street was closed. But there was something else. On Thorne's desk lay a pocket watch, expensive, gold-plated, stopped at exactly 1:05 p.m. "His watch stopped at the moment of death," Constable Reeves said. "The shock of the blow must have damaged it." I examined the watch carefully. The mechanism was indeed frozen at 1:05, but the glass face had a hairline crack. Not from impact with the desk, from deliberate pressure. Someone had stopped this watch manually to establish a time of death. "Tell me about Elias Finch," I asked. Elias Finch's watch shop occupied a narrow building 3 streets from the clock tower. The shop was a symphony of ticking, hundreds of timepieces covering every surface, each keeping perfect time, each representing years of meticulous craft. Finch himself was 50-something, thin and precise, with the careful movements of a man who worked in millimeters. His hands trembled slightly when we entered. "I knew you'd come," he said. "Everyone will assume I killed him, but I have witnesses, 4 of them." "Tell me what happened," I said. Finch set down the pocket watch he'd been repairing. "This morning I received a note from the tower keeper. The town clock mechanism needed maintenance. The striking hammer was sticking. I arrived at the tower at 12:45 p.m. Who else was there? The tower keeper, Harold Grayson, the church sexton, Timothy Wells, 2 tourists who'd come to see the view, a married couple from London whose names I didn't catch. And you were there at 1:05? I was there from 12:45 until 1:20. I watched the clock strike 1 o'clock. I was literally inside the mechanism, oiling gears, when Silas Thorne was being murdered." Evelyn leaned forward slightly. "Mr. Finch, what was your relationship with the deceased?" His jaw tightened. "Silas Thorne destroyed my life 20 years ago. He stole my designs, my patents, built his fortune on my innovations, and when I tried to fight him legally, he had better lawyers." "So you had motive." "I had motive for 20 years, but I also had something more important. I had finally found proof, documents showing his theft. I was going to expose him publicly next month at the Watchmakers Guild." "Why wait?" I asked. "Because I wanted him to know it was coming, to watch his reputation crumble slowly, to feel what I felt when he stole everything from me." He met my eyes directly. "I wanted justice, Mr. Aldridge, not murder. Justice requires the guilty to suffer publicly. Death is too quick, too merciful." "Unless," Evelyn suggested, "you realized he'd found out about your evidence and was going to destroy it. Unless you had to act before next month." Finch's expression darkened. "You're clever, Miss Hart. Yes, Thorne knew. He sent me a letter threatening legal action if I spoke at the conference, threatening to ruin what little reputation I had left." "Which gives you even more motive." "Which gives me motive," he agreed, "but it doesn't give me opportunity. I was in the clock tower. 4 people saw me. The clock itself marks the time I was there." "The clock," I said slowly, "that you maintain, that you understand better than anyone in this city." Finch smiled without warmth. "You're suggesting I manipulated the town clock to create a false alibi, that I made it strike the wrong time." "Did you?" "No, Mr. Aldridge, but I admire the theory. It would be elegant if it were true." The clock tower dominated the harbor square, a Gothic stone structure built a century ago, its 4 bronze faces visible from every part of the port. The mechanism room was a marvel of brass and iron, massive gears and escapements, pendulums and counterweights, all working in perfect synchronization to move those giant hands and ring that enormous bell. Harold Grayson, the tower keeper, was a man who'd spent 40 years tending this mechanical heartbeat. "Mr. Finch arrived at 12:45, he confirmed. "I was expecting him. The striking mechanism had been sticking for 3 days." "And he stayed the entire time?" "Never left my sight. He worked on the hammer assembly until well past 1 o'clock. "You're certain of the time?" Grayson gestured to a dozen clocks mounted on the walls of the mechanism room. "This is a clock tower, Mr. Aldridge. Time is the one thing I'm certain of." "And the clock struck 1 as scheduled?" "Exactly on time, as it does every hour, as it has for 100 years. Timothy Wells, the sexton, confirmed the same story. "I was in the tower checking the bell ropes for Sunday service, saw Mr. Finch working, heard the clock strike. He was here the whole time." The tourists, Mr. and Mrs. Edmund Cartwright from London, provided the final confirmation. "We wanted to see the harbor from above," Mrs. Cartwright explained. "The tower keeper let us up. We watched the clockmaker work. Quite fascinating, really, all those gears and springs." "And he never left?" Evelyn asked. "Never. We could see the entire mechanism room. There's only one door, and we were standing near it. He was there when the clock struck 1. 4 witnesses, all credible, all certain, the perfect alibi, unless the clock itself was lying." We returned to the tower after the witnesses left. I examined the mechanism carefully, running my hands over brass gears worn smooth by a century of motion. "What are we looking for?" Evelyn asked. "Evidence of tampering, something that would allow Finch to manipulate the time the clock struck without anyone noticing." The mechanism was elegant in its complexity. The pendulum swung, driving the escapement. The escapement advanced the gears moved the hands. At the appointed hour, a cam released the hammer to strike the bell. Everything synchronized perfectly, except I stopped at a small brass lever near the striking mechanism. There was a scratch on it, fresh metal exposed beneath old patina. Recent. "Evelyn," I said, "look at this." She examined it carefully, her artist's eye catching details others might miss. "That's new wear within the last few days." I traced the lever's connection through the mechanism. It controlled the release of the striking hammer, but not directly. It adjusted the timing of the release. By moving this lever a few millimeters, you could make the clock strike early or late without affecting the visible time on the clock face. He didn't change what time the clock showed. He changed what time it sounded. Evelyn understood immediately. Everyone uses the bell to mark time, not the clock face itself. No one looks up at the tower to check the hour. They listen for the strikes. Exactly. Finch adjusted this lever so the clock would strike 1 o'clock 15 minutes early at 12:45, which means when everyone heard the clock strike at what they assumed was 1 o'clock, it was actually 12:45, and by 1:05, the real 1:05, Finch had already murdered Thorne and returned to the tower to create his alibi with witnesses. The elegance of it was almost admirable. 4 witnesses could swear he saw him at 1:05 because they believed the clock, and the clock, manipulated by the only man who truly understood it, had lied. But why? Why now, after 20 years of silent suffering? We returned to Thorne's export house and searched his private office more thoroughly. In a locked drawer, opened with keys taken from the body, we found correspondence. Letters between Thorne and a lawyer. Letters discussing the Finch problem. And one letter, dated a week prior, that changed everything. Mr. Thorne, regarding your inquiry about the watchmaking patents filed in 1885 under your name, I have discovered that Elias Finch retained original design journals that predate your patents by 6 months. If presented at the Watchmakers Guild conference, these journals would constitute irrefutable proof of intellectual theft. I recommend immediate legal action to suppress this evidence. Alternatively, we could pursue criminal charges against Finch for defamation, ensuring he lacks credibility to present his claims. The statute of limitations on patent theft has expired, but we can still protect your reputation through aggressive litigation. Awaiting your instructions. Evelyn read over my shoulder. Thorne was going to destroy him, again, just when Finch thought he could finally expose the truth? I continued searching and found something else. A journal, leather-bound, filled with precise technical drawings, designs for watch mechanisms, gear ratios, escapement innovations, all dated 1884-1885, all signed Elias Finch, and all later patented under Silas Thorne's name. This is the evidence, I said, the proof Finch had been searching for, his original work. But why would Thorne keep it? Trophy? Insurance? Perhaps he planned to destroy it but wanted to gloat over it first. Wealthy men often collect evidence of their victories. I turned the pages carefully. The designs were brilliant, revolutionary for their time. and at the back of the journal, a single entry dated 2 weeks ago. He will never let me have justice. I see that now. The law protects men like Silas Thorne. They steal not just inventions, but entire lives, and society rewards them for it. I have waited 20 years. I can wait 2 more weeks. A confession of intent, written in the careful hand of a watchmaker who understood timing better than anyone alive. But before we could confront Finch, another piece fell into place. A woman arrived at our office that evening, young, perhaps 30, with intelligent eyes and the careful posture of controlled emotion. "My name is Catherine Finch," she said. "Elias Finch is my father, and I need to tell you why he did it." We invited her to sit. "Your father hasn't confessed," I said carefully, "but you know he did it. I saw you examining the clock tower. You found the adjustment lever, didn't you?" Her knowledge of the mechanism revealed her own technical understanding. "My father taught me watchmaking before Thorne destroyed him, before everything fell apart." "What happened 20 years ago?" Evelyn asked gently. Catherine's hands tightened in her lap. "Father had developed revolutionary designs, mechanisms that would make watches more accurate, more affordable. He approached Thorne, who was just starting his export business, about partnership, about bringing these innovations to market. And Thorne stole them. He did more than steal them. He befriended my father, came to our home, met our family. My mother was alive then, and my younger brother, Thomas." Her voice caught. "Father trusted him, showed him everything, the designs, the prototypes, the technical journals, and Thorne memorized it all." "What happened to your brother?" I asked, sensing the true tragedy. "Thomas was 15, bright, talented. When Thorne stole the patents and Father tried to fight back legally, we lost everything. Our home, our savings, everything poured into lawyers who couldn't win against Thorne's money." She drew a shaking breath. "The stress destroyed my mother. She died of a heart condition that year. And Thomas couldn't bear watching Father suffer. He was found in the harbor 2 months later. The official verdict was accidental drowning." "But you don't believe that," Evelyn said softly. "Thomas was an excellent swimmer. He left a note. He thought that if he was gone, Father wouldn't have another mouth to feed, wouldn't have the burden of his schooling costs." Tears finally came. "He was 15 years old, and he killed himself because Silas Thorne's theft destroyed our family so completely that a child thought his death would help." The room fell silent except for the ticking of my pocket watch. "Your father wanted justice," I said, "not just for his designs, but for Thomas, for your mother, for 20 years of suffering. He wanted Silas Thorne to know, before he died, exactly what he had destroyed, to understand that his fortune was built on 3 graves." "Did he tell Thorne this?" I asked. "I don't know, but Father kept Thomas's note, carried it with him every day. I think he wanted Thorne to read it before the end." We found Elias Finch in his workshop, surrounded by the steady ticking of hundreds of timepieces. He didn't look up when we entered. "You've solved it," he said simply. "The scratch on the lever. I should have smoothed it, but time was short." "Time," I said, "that you manipulated. The clock struck 15 minutes early, creating an alibi while you committed murder." "Yes." No denial, no excuses. "Tell us what happened," Evelyn said. Finch set down his tools with the careful precision that defined his life. "I went to Thorne's office at 12:30, told his secretary I had new designs to show him. She knew our history, knew he'd want to see anything I created. She let me up. And Thorne was surprised to see me, amused even. He thought I was there to beg, to plead for him to not destroy my evidence at the conference. What did he tell him? I told him about Thomas, about how my 15-year-old son drowned himself because of what Thorne had stolen. I showed him the note Thomas left. Finch's voice remained steady, emotionless. I asked him if he remembered Thomas, if he remembered coming to our home, meeting my family, earning my trust while planning to destroy us. Did he remember? He laughed, said he barely recalled the boy, said business wasn't personal, that I should have been more careful about protecting my work. So you killed him. So I killed him, with the letter opener from his own desk, one thrust directly to the heart. I'd studied anatomy books. I wanted to be certain. And then I arranged his body in the chair, stopped his pocket watch at 1:05 to establish the time, left through his private entrance that opens to the alley. No one saw me, because everyone was listening for the clock to strike 1, which it had already done, 15 minutes early. By the time I returned to the tower at 12:50, the witnesses were arriving. I positioned myself at the mechanism, waited for the real hour of 1 o'clock to arrive at 1:15, and continued my work as if nothing had happened. He finally looked at us. It was perfect. The clock itself became my witness. No one questions time. No one suspects the town clock of lying. Except, I said, a detective who notices a fresh scratch on a lever. Except that.
Why confess? Evelyn asked. We have evidence, but a skilled lawyer might still create doubt. Because, Finch said, I didn't kill Silas Thorne to escape justice. I killed him because justice was impossible. The law protected him. Society celebrated him. Truth didn't matter. He stood and retrieved something from his desk drawer. A small wooden box. Inside, a watch. Beautiful, intricate, clearly masterwork. I made this 20 years ago, for Thomas, for his 16th birthday. He never got to see it finished. The watch was still running, keeping perfect time. Every day for 20 years I've wound this watch, kept it running, because if the watch runs, some part of Thomas continues. Some part of my son exists in the motion of these gears. He closed the box gently. When I killed Thorne, I did it at 12:50, the real time. I wanted Thomas's watch to mark the moment, to be witness to his justice. That's why the mechanism was so important, not just as an alibi, but as a symbolic clock. You used the town's heartbeat to mark your son's revenge. Yes. Constable Reeves arrived with 2 other officers. As they placed manacles on Finch's wrists, he looked at me directly. Mr. Aldridge, will you do something for me? What? Take Thomas's watch, wind it every day, let it keep running. Let some part of him continue even after I hang. I took the wooden box. I will. As they led him away, Evelyn whispered, That might have been the saddest request I've ever heard. Or, I replied, the only justice his son will ever receive.
The trial lasted 3 weeks. Elias Finch confessed to everything. The jury deliberated for less than an hour. Guilty of first-degree murder. Sentenced to hang. But something unexpected happened before the execution. Catherine Finch published her father's original design journals, printed them in full in the Watchmakers Guild quarterly publication, accompanied by a detailed history of Silas Thorne's theft and by Thomas Finch's suicide note. The scandal destroyed Thorne's reputation posthumously. His patents were revoked, his company collapsed, his name became synonymous with theft and exploitation. The very justice Elias Finch had sought, the public exposure, the destroyed reputation, was achieved not by murder, but by the truth his daughter revealed. On the morning of the execution, I visited Finch in his cell. He was calm, accepting. I heard about Catherine's publication, about Thorne's reputation being destroyed, he said. You got your justice, just not the way you planned, I said. No, I got revenge. Catherine got justice. There's a difference. He looked at Thomas's watch, which I had brought. It's still running? Every day. I wind it every morning. Thank you. That means more than you know. He was quiet for a moment. Mr. Aldridge, I have a confession that wasn't part of the trial. What is it? When I adjusted the clock tower mechanism to strike early, I did something else, something I haven't told anyone. What? I adjusted it to be permanently 15 minutes fast, forever. A permanent reminder that time itself can be manipulated, that what society accepts as absolute truth is often just a carefully maintained lie. I felt cold. You mean the town clock is still wrong? By exactly 15 minutes, but no one knows, no one checks. They all just listen for the bell and accept what it tells them. He smiled slightly. The whole town is living 15 minutes ahead of actual time, and they'll never know unless someone examines that lever, unless someone questions the clock itself. Why tell me this? Because you're the only one who looked, who questioned, who understood that even time, the one thing we believe cannot be manipulated, can be used as a weapon. He stood as the guards approached. Fix it or don't, Mr. Aldridge. That's your choice. But remember, every time the town clock strikes, it's lying, and everyone believes it. After the execution, I returned to the clock tower, alone. I examined the mechanism carefully. Finch had been telling the truth. The adjustment lever was still shifted. The clock was permanently 15 minutes fast. The entire town, every pocket watch set by the bell, every schedule arranged by its chimes, was running 15 minutes ahead of actual time. And no one knew. I reached for the lever. One small adjustment would fix it, would restore truth. But then I stopped, because Finch was right. This was a perfect demonstration of how easily truth becomes consensus, how readily people accept authority without question. The town clock said it was 2 p.m., so it was 2 p.m., even if reality said otherwise. I left the lever as it was. Some lessons are more valuable than corrections. On the pier at dawn, or what the town believed was dawn, Evelyn closed her notebook. Another case finished, she said softly. I watched the sunrise, thinking about time and truth and the distance between them. No, I replied, another case where solving the crime was easy, but understanding it required questioning everything we assume to be absolute. Are you going to fix the clock? Should I? The town functions perfectly well, 15 minutes ahead of actual time. Would truth serve them better than the comfortable lie they've accepted? She looked at me with those steady, questioning eyes. That's a dangerous philosophy, choosing when to reveal truth and when to let lies continue. It is,
But Elias Finch taught me something. Time isn't absolute. Truth isn't automatic. Both require constant maintenance, constant questioning, constant courage to challenge what everyone else accepts. And Thomas's watch? I pulled it from my pocket. Still running, keeping perfect time, real time. This, I said, I'll keep winding, not because Finch asked me to, but because it's a reminder that somewhere, underneath all the manipulated mechanisms and adjusted levers, actual truth still exists. Even if no one knows where to find it? Especially then. As we walked back toward our small office near the docks, Evelyn penned the final line. Case File 10, resolved. But in the fog of mystery port, another lantern always waits to be lit.
One year later, the town clock still runs 15 minutes fast. No one has noticed. No one has questioned. The tower keeper winds it faithfully. The bells ring on schedule. And an entire town lives their lives according to a lie a dead watchmaker told. Sometimes I wonder if I should fix it, reveal the truth, restore actual time. But then I remember Elias Finch's final lesson, that the most effective lies are the ones that sound like truth, that the most dangerous manipulations are the ones everyone believes, and that questioning even the town clock, even time itself, is the price of actual truth. So the clock still lies, and I still wind Thomas's watch. One runs 15 minutes fast. One keeps perfect time. Both are true. Both are false. And knowing the difference requires constant vigilance. That's the real lesson of the watchmaker's alibi. Not that time can be manipulated, but that we must always question who controls the clocks that govern our lives.